We're getting a new Pokemon Legends game. I'm so excited. Hopefully you are too. Judging from the comments I've been getting on my Pokemon videos, I'm not so sure. But for those of you who are excited for the new game, what do you want to see in it? I thought for sure we'd be getting either Gen 2 or Gen 5 remakes next. I still wouldn't really be surprised if we did get one in the later half of this year, but for now that we know that we're getting a Legends sequel, there are a ton of things I'd love to see in Pokemon Legends ZA. Let's talk about it. And if you want to see if any of these predictions come true, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as I'll definitely be doing a follow-up video once the game releases next year. First up, let's talk about Kalos and Lumoise City specifically, since apparently the entire game is going to take place exclusively in Lumoise City. In order for the map to be anywhere near the size of the one in the first Pokemon Legends game, they're going to need to greatly expand the size of the Lumoise City from Pokemon X and Y. I'm imagining a map near the size of the Grand Theft Auto games? That may be a bit too much to ask for, but the maps in Arceus were pretty big, so I don't think it's that far-fetched. Do you think the map will still be divided up into segments like it was in Arceus? Considering the new game is still being released on the Switch, I think it's going to have to be divided up. I have a feeling that's part of why Arceus ran so well on the Switch compared to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's big, seamless world. I just don't think the Switch was powerful enough for that. Yeah, they were able to pull it off with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but the Zelda team is used to making semi-open world, big 3D games like that. They've been making them for years. And they don't have 1,000 different individual creatures with different intricate designs to worry about. There are only 110 monsters total in the bestiary for Tears of the Kingdom. Game Freak really has their work cut out for them. Maybe they'll break it into districts, sort of like how it was broken up in X and Y. There could be a fashion district where you'll find fashionable Pokemon like Furfrou, Jynx, Glameow, and Scraggy. A restaurant district home to food-related Pokemon like Munchlax, Snorlax, or Vanillite. A battle district with stronger Pokemon more suitable for fighting. A slums district with Pokemon like Muck Grimer and Garbodor. A power plant area with electric Pokemon. They could do a lot with it. The Paris-inspired Metropolis from Pokemon X and Y is undergoing an urban redevelopment plan. But we still don't know for sure if the game will take place in the past, in the future, or in the present, like the same time as the original X and Y versions. Pokemon Legends Arceus took us back to a time in ancient Sinnoh. Could ZA follow suit? Gen 6 captivated at least some players with its diverse landscapes, charming towns, and unique Mega Evolutions. But imagine exploring a Kalos untouched by modern technology, teeming with wild Pokemon and ancient mysteries. As it is, the origins of Mega Evolution remain a captivating mystery. Exploring ancient ruins and encountering legendary Pokemon tied to its creation could be interesting. Imagine a Lumoise City in its early stages, a bustling settlement amidst a vast wilderness, contrasting starkly with the modern metropolises we know. What new Mega Evolutions do you think we'll get? We've got to be getting some new ones, right? Do you think we'll be getting both new Mega Evolutions and new regional forms like the Hisuian Pokemon from Legends Arceus? Also, can we just drop the other regional gimmicks and just stick with Mega Evolutions from now on? Mega Evolutions are so cool, at least in theory. I know not all of them turn out great, but at least they're always new and interesting. They're so much better than the Z moves or Dynamaxing or Terrestrializing. I don't want another gimmick in Generation 10 that's just like teleportation moves where your Pokemon teleports to another location and then does the attack and then they teleport back. If you're gonna have any gimmicks in the next game, just stick with Mega Evolution. Or at least keep the Mega Evolutions that we already have. Please don't just lock them away for another 10 years. Getting back to the story, they could delve into the Great Kalos War between humans and Pokemon 3,000 years ago, witnessing the historical figures like Xerneas and Yveltal at their prime. Maybe they'll get primal forms like we got for Kyogre and Groudon. Or maybe we'll get some new fusion-like form that mixes them together. Both that and seeing the creation of the ultimate weapon could be fascinating. Kalos never got a third version like Crystal or Platinum. But now with ZA, we're diving deep into its lore. Who built the Tower of Mastery? What's the deal with AZ and his eternal Floette? I didn't even realize it until this trailer came out, but this guy has a name, and it's AZ. Just like the title of the game, Pokemon Legends ZA, but backwards. So I'm assuming this guy or his ancestors or descendants will play a major role in the plot. And just why did Team Flare want to reshape the world? I don't think the game is going to take place at the same time as Pokemon X and Y, since it is undergoing this whole urban redevelopment plan. But it could very well take place in the near or distant future, after the story of X and Y. And in that case, we could see the entire city being rebuilt, buildings and everything. Either way, I'm thinking it will be similar to Legends Arceus, where you'll be personally helping the city expand by completing different missions given to you by the city council or something, likely involving catching, training, and battling hundreds of different species of Pokemon. I expect the Pokemon to be a somewhat random assortment of approximately 400 Pokemon from Gens 1 through 6. Yeah, I think we'll get primarily Generation 6 Pokemon, but I'm sure there will be a good handful of Gens 1 through 5 Pokemon. I don't think we'll be seeing any Gen 7, 8, or 9 Pokemon here, with the exception of maybe the starters. But for the starters, I'm gonna go with Totodile, Treecko, and Chimchar. Those are my guesses, and I'm sticking to them. Balancing the open world exploration with a compelling narrative is gonna be pretty challenging for them too. If they're not careful, we'll wind up with another potato mochi situation on our hands. How can they avoid repeating similar gameplay elements from Pokemon Legends Arceus? Introducing some new unique puzzles could address this. Or I would love it if you could use your own Pokemon as the ride Pokemon this time around. That could be a tremendous undertaking on the developers' part. The only time before now they've had the tenacity to do this was when they only had 150 Pokemon to deal with in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where you could ride any Pokemon that theoretically would be rideable. But I would absolutely love for that to make a comeback. It was so cool to be able to ride on Charizard or Dodrio or Rapidash or Arcanine or Persian or Onix in that game. I don't expect them to bring that back since it would be a real challenge to implement. Realistically, we'll probably just get one Pokemon for traveling quickly, one Pokemon for searching underground, one Pokemon for climbing, and one Pokemon for flying or gliding again. I imagine the catching mechanics will be similar to Pokemon Legends Arceus too, where we catch Pokemon in the overworld. And I'm sure we'll get at least 1 or 2 new legendaries. It'll be interesting to see how we encounter them. Like maybe you can track down Xerneas or Yveltal through ancient forests, or atop Lumoisa's Eiffel Tower. And Zygarde? This is essentially Pokemon Z version. I imagine we'll be assembling all of its cells. And lastly, do you think they'll release this on the Switch 2, or whatever the next Nintendo console is called, as well as the Nintendo Switch? So far they've said it's launching exclusively on Nintendo Switch, and they've never done a cross-generational release of a Pokemon game before. Even when Pokemon Black and White 2 launched, 2 years after the release of the Nintendo 3DS, they were built from the ground up for the original Nintendo DS. Granted, you could still play them on the 3DS since it was fully backwards compatible, but you didn't get any upscaled graphics or anything like that. It would be really strange if they were to release the next Pokemon game on both the Switch and the Switch 2, but then not have the Switch 2 version be better in some way, shape, or form. And that's assuming Pokemon Legends ZA is the next Pokemon game. I'm still not totally convinced they won't announce or release another Pokemon game in the meantime, like a Gen 2 Let's Go style game or a Gen 5 Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl style game. Those presumably wouldn't require as much development time as an open world game, so I think it's pretty feasible that something could still be coming out this year in 2024. As to why they announced Pokemon Legends ZA before this hypothetical remake game, I'm thinking maybe it was to generate some positive press on Pokemon Day, to get Pokemon on people's good side again. It's no secret that the Pokemon Company has been receiving some harsh criticisms these last few years, what with the whole Dexit thing in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then with all the bugs and graphical glitches in Scarlet and Violet, especially now with the release of Palworld. The Pokemon Company and Game Freak could really use some positive press, and another Legends game is the perfect way to achieve that. I feel like Legends Arceus was easily the most well-received Pokemon game that's come out in the last few years, at least on a broad internet scale. I'm sure lots of kids don't care as much, and I personally still really liked Pokemon Sword and Shield, but I can't deny that Legends has the broader appeal, or at least the better critical reception. Personally, I think Pokemon Legends ZA will still launch exclusively on the Nintendo Switch, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was still at least playable on the next Nintendo console, just because the Switch has a gigantic user base. I think it would be a huge oversight not to have the next Nintendo console at least backwards compatible with the Switch. Now, it could be backwards compatible for digital games only, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. What are your hopes and predictions for Pokemon Legends ZA? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see my review of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, click the link on screen. Thanks for watching.